Hello, my Aloha tribe, and welcome to the Aloha Perspective, where you get a little bit of something and a whole lot of everything. Happy Thursday. What the hell? Seriously? You know, I literally have a planner sitting right over there, and it's just like, why don't you look at it before you start your show, you big dummy? But, anyways, and I also have this, one of my baby snakes is not cooperating. This one was like, yeah, mom, I'm going to do my thing. But this one got a little whimsical. So I decided to leave it that way. And so if it bothers you, I apologize, because it's like Pippi Longstocking, right? There. Can you see it now? Oh my God, what is happening? Anyways, today we're going to talk about judgments and stereotypes. But before we get going, while I wait for a few people to come on, good morning, older sibling. I'm going to, oh, thank you. You know what? So older sibling was with me when I discovered how to do this. We were on the ship, and I was just, I didn't want a ponytail because it was kind of getting warm, and I just wanted my hair off my skin. And so I took a clip with my ponytail, with a ponytail, and I just pushed it up until it made this. And then I just used some bobby pins to hold it down. So yay. But yeah, again, we're like, I don't know, maybe this poor baby snake just died and said, I'm not waking up today. And this one says, yeah, we're going, this is the whimsical hair. This is the whimsical baby snake going, hi, how you doing? So, no, I'm not high, and no, I'm not drunk. I think all my little brain cells are finally repopulating. But, anyway, like I said, I wanted to pull a card. Aw, look at, there's my girl. All right. I did a reading this morning, and, she popped, I had to put her back in the deck. So now, thank you, Blossom. She's so cute. See, she's got the wild hair too. So, she's just saying, hey, Shell, let's just, go for it there. I like to keep her up there. So anyways, let's just pull one card before we get into judgments and stereotypes. So let's make it fun before we go dark. So, good morning, Muddy. Thank you. You're so sweet. Ooh. Did we have, I feel like we had this one last week. Life is meant to be enjoyed. Love, oh, you saw that, right? I just pulled it up. We found the card for today to go with today. But here's one. Life is meant to be enjoyed, but I guess love too, right? And then blossom, start of a fantastic new journey. So there you go. But yeah, Anahata. This one is love without judgment. Love without... Sorry, it's just killing me. These are my curls, okay? These are my curls gone wild. Curls gone wild. Okay, that should be a new show. Lord have mercy. Oh, I forgot to close my window. I'm sorry. So you're going to hear a lot of noise outside. I know. Muddy and I both love Blossom. I need to take a picture of Blossom and just send it to you so that you have it forever. Because she's so cute. She is so cute. We just love her. I mean, you saw her face, right? She's like this hair. She's like this one piece or this group of hairs that are just decided to do their own thing. Anyways, the reason I said that is because when I went to sleep last night, they were both straight, and somehow in the night, this one went out and partied and had a good time, and they all came back and said nope. So, anyways, love without judgment. At first sight, the lettuce. Oh, it's lettuce. Oh, I didn't show you. Did I show you the card? Yeah, I did show you the card. It's lettuce. I mean, wouldn't that be awesome if all lettuce looked that fancy, right? But there's also the heart of the lettuce. But, I mean, it'd be like, but then you probably not want to eat it. So, anyways, and we do have a vegetarian on here. So, yeah, so, But anyways, at first sight, the lettuce might not seem to be the obvious choice for a beautiful bouquet, but its gorgeous pearly green leaves have their own beauty reminiscent of the color of the heart chakra. It is also a versatile plant in both the culinary and medicinal worlds. The humble lettuce is excellent for brain health, reduces anxiety, and supports healthy sleep on a metaphysical level. On a metaphysical level, lettuce encourages love and compassion. So, We have a head of lettuce in the fridge. And all I can think of now is it encourages love and compassion. So, okay. Ooh, maybe I should go in there and just kind of, do some white lighting around it so it, food magic, kitchen magic, right? So anyways, Anahata is the Indian Sanskrit word for the heart chakra, meaning unstruck or unbeaten. And yes, struck, not stuck, unstruck or unbeaten. It is located in the center of our physical heart and lungs. The heart always seeks unity, peace, and inclusiveness. Its key words are kindness, generosity, and respect for all living things. The Anahata unicorn welcomes an opening of the heart, especially in a situation where you may be tempted to close it down. Someone may have hurt you or made you angry, and your first instinct is to hurt them back. Anahata asks you to imagine what you would say to this person if you knew they only had one day left on this earth. You may find your ire softens. Can I read? You may find your ire softens, and you are more likely to forgive them. You may begin to focus on all their positive qualities and their innate goodness. So apparently I don't know what punctuation marks are today. You may begin to focus on all their positive qualities and their innate goodness. These beautiful thoughts will lighten your heart, bring compassion, and help ease the burden of stuck, and heavy emotions. Perhaps you are someone who is easily hurt and feel the keen sting of others' behaviors more than you should. The following visualization will help. It's going to be one of those days. The unicorn, one of those shows. The unicorn brings you this meditation to teach your heart resilience. Take 3 very deep breaths. Okay, you want to do it now? Let's do it now. Breathe in, hold it. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. And with the last one, while you're taking this last deep breath, and you can do this if you do this later with every breath, imagine a beautiful green crescent moon curved around your heart chakra. So, and then release. The points of this moon arc are up to each shoulder. So it wants you to do this as the moon crescent, okay? So that each one is pointing towards your shoulder. The points of the moon arc are up to each shoulder, while the thickest part of the crescent creates a beautiful glowing shield that protects your heart and makes it resilient and strong. Carry a rose quartz crystal with you and keep it close to your heart, thinking of this radiant green crescent shield often. This will help you to love humankind freely and without judgment. Boy, I better just get some kind of outfit that is nothing but rose quartz if they expect me to go out in the world and drive and not be judgy. And I legit mean that. Oh, I'm very judgmental when I'm behind the wheel. Because some people are just stupid, okay? Some people are just dumb. Last night I was on YouTube and this one video came across. It said, Idiots on Water. That's literally was the title, Idiots on Water. And it's all these morons driving boats. And, actually I shouldn't say all of them. Some of them, it wasn't their fault. The water, I mean, somebody even put in the comments, it just goes to show you how, something can go wrong so fast in the ocean. An older sibling and I know that too, from having just been on a ship that was, rocking like a cradle. It's crazy. But yeah, some of the other people just dumb. I mean, somebody actually took a video of themselves driving like a moron with a can of beer in the cup holder. Seriously. It's like, just because you're on a water doesn't mean that you can be drunk. Okay? That's why they have water police. And yes, they have water police. Unfortunately, they can't be everywhere all at once. So, anyways, so we have the Anahata card, right? And I'm pointing because it's over there now. But we have the Anahata card, How to Love Without Judgment. And that's where I think it's a perfect card, because yesterday I kind of gave you an idea of what we were going to talk about today. And I will tell you, this still, when I think about it now and I kind of relive this whole thing, it still pisses me off like nobody's business. So, older sibling, this is years ago. I mean, one of our friends who has since moved to Texas was still living in the complex. And, this is also about a little bit of self-love, okay? Because even though it wasn't that far, our neighbor was home. And she's like one of our very dear, dear friends, not just a neighbor. I mean, she started out as a neighbor and just became one of our really good, dear, close friends. When she comes to town, we all get together. She's invited us out to Texas to go visit her at her house. And, you know, I'm saying this because older sibling is the kind of person, oh, I don't want to bother anybody. So on 100+ degree day, yes, it does get that hot here in Southern California, because technically, even though we are near the ocean, we are actually a desert. Okay, we are a part of the desert. We're just part of the, you know, the ocean desert. So, but we do get not quite like our neighbor to the east, Arizona, but Southern California. Northern California is almost like regular. You know, they have seasons up there, but Southern California and Central California can get pretty wild when it comes to heat. So, but it was 100+ degree day, and older sibling decided, I'm going to walk myself to the ER. She had a horrible tooth infection, and the dentist had told her, you know, can you go, you need to go to the ER because we can't squeeze you in today, you know, and of course they don't have emergency dentists, right? But I mean, this is her dentist. Dentist said, go to the ER because we can't get you in, you know, until next week. And she's like, I don't think I can wait that long. And he said, just tell them what's going on and that your dentist sent you. And she, you know, and she's like, okay. So she goes in, she's in a t-shirt, jeans, and shoes, but she's also, because of the tooth pain, she's now in a flare. And again, at the time it was called RSD, which is reflex sympathetic dystrophy. Now it's, because there's so many RSDs across the board, they have, they've kind of encompassed it into something else called CRPS, which is chronic regional pain syndrome. Now, if you don't know what RSD or CRPS is, it's basically fibromyalgia on steroids. That's what I always tell people, because fibromyalgia is already bad, but, you know, CRPS is like one level higher. You know, it's like the granddaddy of everything that comes behind it when it comes to chronic pain. And, you know, when you go into a flare, not only are you, you know, you're just, I mean, you turn bright red because your body is basically on fire from the inside out. All your nerve endings are just standing on end, burning the shit out of you from the inside out, to the point where you can't even really touch somebody with CRPS. I mean, whenever I meet someone with CRPS, RSD, they always, you know, like the one person I met, you know, we were talking about it, and it was at older siblings pain management. And I was just like, you know, I said, can I hug you? And I said, I'm only asking because I don't know if you're in a flare or not. And she actually got misty-eyed, because most people don't know that. And most people don't think to ask that, because the first thing they want is a hug. But if they're in a flare, it is going to send them flying through the roof with pain. So not always the best thing. Okay. So she's sweaty. She's a little disheveled. She's hurting so bad. And, you know, and she was having some dental problems at the time too. So, of course, this, and I'm sorry, sibling, I have to bring that up because this all plays into the stereotype that the doctor stuck her in. So she was having some dental issues, and, you know, and they've all since been fixed. And I do, again, I apologize. I probably should have asked before I thought about that, but it really kind of plays into the whole thing of how the doctor just stereotyped her and judged her right off the bat. Now, she had called me, and she had called, I just wanted to let you know I'm going to the ER. It's like, what? What the what? And she calls me at work. I go into my boss. I got to go home. Older sibling's not feeling well. I need to get her to the ER. And so, and they're all like, well, can't she drive? It's like, no, she's in a flare. She can't drive. And, you know, at the time, well, actually, yeah. And so they're all fine. And I had actually asked my supervisor, you know, and she's just like, is she okay? And I'm like, yeah, she'll be okay. And so anyways, like I said, older sibling had some dental problems, and thank you, older sibling. And she's like, it's okay. So, you know, and I won't go into anything other than that. I'm just going to say she had some dental problems. All right. We don't need to paint a real picture on that one. But, you know, like I said, she's a little disheveled because she is in so much pain, and it's so fucking hot outside. Excuse my language, but, and it was humid. So that doesn't help. You know, I mean, what is humidity? Basically helps you sweat without, you know, you blink and you're sweating. Muddy knows. She lives in Hotlanta. So, So anyway, that was a funny conversation I'm gonna have to tell Muddy about later. Older sibling. But anyway, gotta throw some levity into this one because otherwise I will be swearing my head off. This had to be at least a decade ago, but it still pisses me off to no end. And actually, I think it was more than a decade ago. But anyways, and yes, it's still fresh in my head. So anyways, I get there, and just as I'm getting there, they're calling her into the back. So, because she's like, what are you doing here? I'm like, seriously? So, we go into the back, and we're both sitting there. I'm so concerned for her because I can see how poorly she looks. She is not feeling well at all. She's flaring because she has major mouth pain because of an infection. Muddy, the steam bath of the South, Hotlanta. I love it. I'm sure you don't, but I love how she put that. The steam bath of the South. And I wish I had the accent to say it because, it's like the perfect accent. But anyways, and yes, I'm very familiar with the Georgian accent because Sissy Joe, boy, she sounded like she was from California, but the minute she started talking to a family member in Georgia, that drawl came right out. And I mean, it came right out. It's like, wow. And not wow like, really, like wow. It was just like that. It's like she didn't even think. She just went right back into it. It's like, whew, wow. That was like 0 to 50 in like 1 second. So anyway, we're sitting there and, and I, sibling and I are just trying to talk and I'm just, I feel horrible for her because I can see how much she's hurting. And, when you know someone long enough and you've lived with someone long enough, you know their tells and you know their signs. And so I was like, I was just hoping, beyond all hope that the doctor just looks at her, gives her some antibiotics, because that's what the dentist told her to do. Get some antibiotics. And then, if it doesn't help, then come see us. And it's like, okay. First thing he does, he walks in, he looks her over. Okay. And he just automatically decided what he was going to say. No bedside manner, no nothing. I mean, if I remember the Hippocratic Oath, do no harm. He did so much harm that day. And, we talked about it a little yesterday. I have talked about this on my show before. But I really wanted to drive the point home because this is a little bit about ageism. Not a lot, but a little bit about ageism. Okay? And stereotyping. And, she's... And I really wish she would have let me say something that day. I really wish. But I think she was so afraid he wouldn't give her antibiotics. And I'd be like, you know what? I'm not the litigious type, but boy, I really wanted to ring this guy. But, because he was so horrible. He was so horrible. I mean, like I said, no bedside manner at all. And, he just looked right at her. And, and older sibling is very friendly. He walks in, she's like, hi, even though she's in pain, she's like, she was just like, hello, just being friendly older sibling, through her smile, which of course kind of looks like the Joker's grin when she's hurting because she's like forcing it because she's in so much pain. But that's just who she is. She's a very friendly personality. And she wasn't trying to bamboozle him or anything. And it's not like we live in an area where you would find a lot of people looking for drugs. Okay. We live in an older kind of, I don't know if we would call it a bedroom community or not, but it's definitely an older community. And I don't mean like old people. We got a lot of those. We have a whole street of those. Believe it or not, there's like three, what do they call those? Senior homes on one of the streets, and they're like next to each other, and they kind of progress in care. It's like one is for, complete care. One is kind of like, all right, go about your business. And then the third one is actually a senior apartments for senior living. So it's kind of like, it's the progression, right? You move from, so, it's like you go backwards to move back all the way to the other one. But he just looked right at her. And he's all like, she didn't even open her mouth. All she said was hello. I'm not giving you any drugs. And she's like, what? And he's all, you heard me. I'm not giving you any drugs. He's all, you can tell me what's going on with you, but I'm not giving you any drugs. And I'm like, excuse me? And of course, older sibling puts up her hand like, I'll take care of this. And he just looked at her and he's, so what are you here for? And she's all, well, I have a tooth infection and it really hurts. And he's all, well, I'm not giving you drugs. And she's all, I'm not asking you for drugs. And she's all, the dentist told me to come in here because they can't get me in today. And this tooth infection has been going on for a couple of days now. So he told me to come to the ER and ask for antibiotics. Now, at this point, you could kind of see his shoulders relax a little, but he had already dug in his heels and made an asshole of himself. So he just decided, instead of taking accountability for his actions, to just keep going with being a jerk. Okay? And so he says, well, let me, he's all, well, I'm not giving you drugs. And she's all, I have enough drugs at home to put LA in a coma. She's all, I'm not asking you for pain meds. And she said it very nicely. Okay? I'm just angry still, so my voice may sound terse. But she was very nice. She's all, I just need antibiotics. And she's all, the doctor asked me to come in here and just ask for antibiotics. And you can see that she's just, at this point, she's just hurting, not just physically, but emotionally. Because, older sibling is a very strong person, but she's also sensitive. And it's like, I'm going to give you a little bit of a backstory, okay? In 1979, she had a car accident and the car rolled, okay? It wasn't their fault. It was one of those faulty tires back in the 70s, okay? That there was a company out there, was it Firestone? Bridgestone? Firestone? One of those. But they had faulty tires that were just blowing up on people, and probably in the heat. They just weren't doing well. And if it had not been for older siblings' training of knowing how to drive a horse trailer from being a horse trainer, even the police officer said, you guys would probably be dead. Because he's all, how did you control that car? And I'm sorry if I'm not telling it exactly as it was, sibling. But she managed it and she held on. It was Firestone. So thank you. So she held on, she managed it, and she managed to keep the car steady long enough to keep it from rolling to the point of death, like the death roll. All right, but they managed. They climbed out, but unfortunately, she's one of these rare people. Maybe not that rare, but there are people in accidents who can roll a car and and not necessarily walk away, but just come out with maybe a broken bone or two, but not CRPS. Well, it triggered a CRPS in her body, and CRPS is usually triggered by a traumatic event to the body, and it triggered it in her. And so this began her lifelong journey. She did go into remission for a while. She was in a wheelchair for a while. The doctor told her she'd be in a wheelchair for the rest of her life. She's like, no, I'm getting out of this chair. And she managed to, there are limitations that she has to a degree, but she tries to be as normal as she can. However, in 2005, she had back surgery. And unfortunately, this, again, trauma to the body, flared her again. So she came out of remission back into CRPS, and unfortunately hasn't been able to get back into remission since then. But we're working on it. So, if you all could send her the good juju vibes, prayers, manifestations, everything, that would be great, because it'd be nice for her to get back into remission. Because if you look up CRPS, I made cards for her. After this happened, I actually made cards for her so that, she can show people, doctors and stuff, because a lot of doctors didn't really believe it was real either. It's one of those invisible illnesses, right? Like mental health. Chronic pain, whether you have fibromyalgia, chronic pain across the board, arthritis, these are all pains that are invisible. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people in this world that if it's an invisible disease, they think you're lying. And that kind of bothers me, because if you're in the medical profession, you need to be a little bit more professional. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that everybody's like that. I know a lot of wonderful nurses. I'm related to a ton of nurses. That whole Filipino thing really stands. Because all the nurses I know that are related to me, obviously, are some version of Filipino. But, and by that I mean either half or whole or a quarter. But it is kind of funny. But, it's just naturally ingrained in them to just be natural caregivers. But, I mean, case in point, right, between sibling and my dad. But anyways, so he just keeps reiterating, I'm not giving you drugs, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. And I'm just, Mount Shelsuvius was ready to go, but older sibling would not let me say a word. And to this day, I regret that. I really wish I hadn't listened to her. Like the minute she got her prescription, I wish I would have gone out to him and said, you know what, you're a judgmental asshole, and I'm reporting you. I did report him though, because, and I would never do that for myself. I would just go home, I'd be mad, I'd stew about it, and then still be mad about it about 2 weeks later, and then it'd be gone. But this was older sibling. Older sibling was dealing with enough. And now she was dealing with a tooth infection. Okay, just something that happens. Now, the reason I had to bring up the CRPS and all those things is because, you know, she does have a pain management doctor, and the pain management doctor monitors the meds that she is on. Now, to go back even further, and this is something that older sibling is also very vocal about, Mom Barbara, before I met her, was an alcoholic. By the time I met her, she was sober living. But before that, you know, for a good chunk of older sibling's life, from birth and on, her mom was an alcoholic. And addiction was a very serious thing to older sibling, because she saw her mom go through it. She saw her mom fighting her way out of it. She saw how her mom struggled with those demons, and how she struggled to fight to save what relationships she had left by, you know, trying to become sober, and then eventually stepping into the sober life fully and completely. And you know, it was a hard and long road for her. And, you know, I mean, I bless her heart, because I'm telling you, I know they say in the South that that's actually a mean term, but when I'm saying it, I mean it. Okay. Like sarcasm. They say it's like sarcasm. It's like, oh, like, bless your heart. And it's like, no, you know, but no, I mean it. I mean, and rest in peace, Mom Barbara, because she was a wonderful, wonderful person. But I don't know, it was just something in the DNA. And so when older sibling found out that that the surgery had caused CRPS again in her body, she went to her doctor, and the family doctor, you know, he actually referred her to pain management, because he knew that she was going to need more help, and they were going to have to prescribe, you know, what we call class 3 drugs, which are a triplicate drug, which means that you only can get a certain limit. You cannot get refills. You literally have to see your doctor all the time. And so they put her on these meds, and she didn't want to be on them. She's like, no, I'll just suffer through it. She literally said, I will suffer through it. And they're like, no, you can't suffer through this. You have got trauma to your body. We need to help get you on a regimen that will help you. Okay. And so they did that, but this doctor wouldn't listen. And I don't think she helped her case by saying I have enough drugs to put LA in a coma, and she said because of her CRPS, but of course he wasn't listening. At that point, after he realized he was wrong, he had shut down, and he was just going to, like I said, he dug in. He dug in his heels, and he was just going to continue to be an asshole. And so, you know, afterwards, you know, they chatted a little bit, and, you know, he didn't even really face her or look at her. He was spending all this time on the computer and everything. And I think the nurse outside heard, because when he left the room, I was just like, you know, what the hell? And I said, what an asshole. And I don't care if he heard me or not. I really didn't. And poor sibling, I could see her. Her lips were quivering. She was trying so hard not to burst into tears in that bed. Because he came in, he looked at her, and he immediately judged her. And I don't fucking care if it is a drug addict in that bed. You do not treat them like they are vermin. You do not treat them like they're unhuman. Because if there's something I understand, especially having known Mom Barbara, and, you know, her and I talking sometimes when older sibling was at home about her struggle to get sober, I realized that that person in the bed that may be a drug addict, they're struggling. There's something going on, and they are just struggling. And I know sometimes we sit there and we judge them going, well, they got themselves into that, but we don't know. A lot of times trauma happens to people and they try to kill it with drugs. They don't get therapy because nobody believes in it, right? Or they say, oh, you'll be fine, you'll be strong, don't do it. I mean, the only reason I say that my parents kept me on this side of being a statistic is because if I didn't have my parents going, you better not do drugs or we're going to kick you out of the house, I could have been that statistic. You know, and I really don't think they would have kicked me out of the house. But they said that to scare me because we saw what happened to my cousins. I had some cousins that struggled with addiction. They're both fine now. But, you know, but they did. And it was kind of like, and I was there once for a family battle that, you know, we were visiting families kind of like, and I was so little that it kind of scared me straight anyways. But even older sibling, she did. She reminded me now. She asked him to look it up on the internet. And he's all like, I don't need to look it up. You know, and he stopped saying, I'm not going to give you drugs. She's like, all I want is antibiotics. She's all, my dentist just told me to get antibiotics. That's it. She's all, it's the only reason I'm here. And she's all, if I could go to my regular doctor and get it, I would. But it's a Friday afternoon. Most offices are getting, you know, closing now. And she's all, my dentist couldn't get me in. My doctor can't get me in. And he's all like, you know, but like I said, because he had already been an asshole and automatically judged her the minute he walked through that curtain, he dug in. Instead of apologizing and saying, you know, okay. Turns out at the time, the company that owned this particular ER, it's actually near our house. It's kind of kitty corner to where we live, but so it's probably a good maybe 10-minute or less walk, depending. But they were traveling doctors. Now, I'd heard of traveling nurses, but I never heard of traveling doctors. But they're contracted. And so they only come in for like a month and then they move on, you know, to a different hospital, usually in the county. So they just they're kind of roving. But I'll tell you what pissed me off the most. I'm sitting by the curtain so I can see outside of the room. And he goes into this, right across to this other area. There's an older lady there, dressed very nicely, like, you know, she's going out to lunch or something with the ladies. Her husband is with her. And the doctor, all of a sudden, his demeanor changes. And he looks at her, he's all, well, hello there. What can I do for you today? He's all, are you doing okay? And she's all, well, my rheumatoid arthritis is flaring up. And he's all, well, do you need some painkillers for that? And I was like, are you fucking kidding me right now? And I'm pretty sure he heard me because I was not quiet. And older sibling's like, what? And I'm all, this asshole literally went across the way, saw a lady who was dressed nice and asked her if she needed pain meds. And all you were doing was asking for antibiotics. And I said, she's probably the addict. Now, I'm being judgy, admittedly. But if you have rheumatoid arthritis, you should already have pain meds. Or you should already be on something for that. Now, I'm not saying she was, but the fact that she just answered like that, yes, I could use, you know, do you need anything for the pain? Yes. And he's, oh, well, are you on meds? No. My dad was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, and she offered him pain meds. He's like, no. He's all, can I take Motrin? She's like, yeah, if you want. But she gave him pills to help kind of, you know, like just regular meds that, you know, to take daily to help with, you know, to settle the inflammation and stuff. So I don't know if she was seeking drugs or not. I couldn't tell you, and I'm being honest, and I don't want to be judgy, but the fact that he walked in there and just automatically, you know, saw this nicely dressed woman who had her husband drive her to the hospital. I mean, if older sibling would have had someone drive her to the hospital, might have been a little bit better, but I doubt it. I doubt it, because this guy was already deciding when she smiled at him how he was going to treat her. And, you know, you know, I don't know, the way he was with that other lady, it blew my mind. And like I said, and even older siblings like, she's all, shh. And I said, no, I said, I'm not going to fucking be quiet. I said, this guy's an asshole. And I said, and I don't appreciate the way he treated you. And I said, to be honest with you, I said, I think you're being too nice. But anyways, I think, I'm pretty sure the nurse heard me, because when he came in, he actually looked at older sibling. He's like, I am so sorry. He's all, are you okay? And she's all, yeah. And he's all, well, the doctor, he's all, here's your prescription for the antibiotics. And he's all, are you sure you don't need anything else? She's like, no. She's all, I have CRPS. And she's all, I'm already on, you know, regimented pain meds. But I said, I tried to tell the doctor that, but he wouldn't listen. He's all like, yeah, I'm really sorry about that. And so the nurse was so nice. He was so very, very kind. And that made up for it a little bit. And I was so grateful for that because, you know, I have no doubt in my mind that he heard me. And I don't think that's why he was nice to older sibling, because I also think he heard the doctor. You know, and he didn't come in until the doctor left, and even him, when he came in, he was very quiet. He was very low toned when he says, "Are you okay?" And she's like, "Yeah." And so older siblings, lips still quivering, I get her into the car and she just bursts into tears. You know, and I think part of it was anger, and I think the other part of it was just he hurt her feelings. You know, and he really hurt her. And I will tell you, when it comes to my siblings, you know, I mean, here's the thing. I'm an only child. So if I call you my best friend or my muddy or older sibling or baby sibling, you are on a level with me that a lot of people, even people I love, aren't at. I mean, I will go into mama bear status for you. Just like older sibling would for me. And I've seen her do it. I have seen her, you know, her and I don't know how to stand up for ourselves. But you put us in the line of fire, we'll stand up for anybody else. But it was just, it hurt me. It hurt my heart to see how much he broke her. She was already, you know, having severe embarrassment from the dental issues. But to be treated the way she was. And at the time, I never thought about the fact of, you know, what a person who may be an actual drug addict or an alcoholic goes through if they go in just looking for antibiotics. Well, I'm not giving you drugs. How much judgment and how much stereotyping there must be. You know, people, you know, sometimes people just have that addictive gene, okay? And they can't help it. Other people, there are times where, you know, it's a trauma. There's a trauma-based thing happening there. And so they're just trying to dull that pain and kill that pain instead of going to therapy and getting help. Because a lot of times we don't have that encouragement to get care for our mental health. And, you know, I will say this. I appreciate that the millennials and the Gen Zers are really putting mental health on the map and making it easier for people who are my age and older, a lot of us Gen Xers who probably have a lot of mental health issues, to be more open and to be more honest about it. I always try to be honest about it. When I was 23 years old and I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder, I tried to be honest about it. And my mom just said, you know, you just need to be stronger. You don't have depression. You just need to be stronger. And she's all, I don't make weak babies. And she was wrong. And so for 20 years, I avoided my mental health. For 15 years, I fought hard against older sibling who was trying to get me help. And, you know, and I regret that. So if somebody says that to you, you don't have to be vocal with them. You don't have to look for their support. Find a different group of support. Find your own support. Start in here. Start where you need to be, because only you know what is best for you. And if you need that therapy or you need that mental health help, then go get it. All right. If you don't want to be seen, you can do it online. They do have online therapists now. They have therapists on apps, for God's sakes. But, see, Sammy's the same way. I had someone tell me years ago that I wouldn't stand up for myself, but I would aggressively take up for people I care about. And I think maybe that's a lot of us out there. You know, but yeah, that Muddy and older sibling, I swear these two are like soul connected somehow. But, oh, good morning, Angie. So she says, happy you're an advocate for people. Some people need it. Oh, thank you. You're so sweet. That comes from not having the support I needed when I was younger. And then here's the kicker, because my dad's all, why didn't you ever tell me about that? And I said, Mom told me not to. And like an idiot, I listened. And, you know, my dad still, he still struggles to understand the whole idea of depression. And, you know, and I think it's hard. And I don't, you know, I don't fault him for that, because he understands that this is something I go through. And, you know, and I do try to explain it. But I said, let me put it this way. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. And he's all, wow, can it get that bad? I'm like, yeah. But I have it in check now. Okay. And I am on my antidepressants. Well, one, I say antidepressants, but I am on one. But technically there's two, because I switch back and forth. When one stops working, I go back to the other one, because these are the two that I finally found work for me. I hate Prozac. Now, I'm not saying it's bad, because for some people it works, but it made me feel like a zombie. Like, it literally, like I was just existing in my body. That's how dull I was. And I was on the lowest dose to start with. And I'm just like, I don't like this. That's why I got off of it. But, you know, I will say this. Drug companies can sometimes be a little bit sketchy, but thank you for creating something that works for me. But anyways, I do. So, you know, if you're watching this and somebody says to you that, you know, you need support and you don't know where to find it, just, you know, shoot me an email, shoot me a DM, whatever. Okay. Because I will be here for you. Even if I don't know you, you know, put it in the comments, even if I don't know you, because sometimes we just need that encouragement to take that first step forward. And I will tell you, therapy saved my life. Therapy saved my life. And it got me back on the right path that I need to be. Oh, thank you, Angie. You're so sweet. And I hope you have a wonderful day too. Okay. Oh, thank you. Oh, I'm turning blushing. I mean, you know, I have pink blush on, but I'm blushing. Thank you. So sweet. But anyways, you know, I'm sorry. I just can't stop looking at this little, my little Pippi Longstocking snake right there. But anyways, I promise you I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I'm really, really not. I just think that there's a lot of times that we don't see ourselves, and we need to see ourselves. I know that I struggle with my own self-love, and, you know, and I love my mom, and I get where my mom was coming from. I had a family member, who had taken their own life, and my mom's like, I can't believe he did that over a woman. And I said, even younger, before I realized that I had depression, I was just like, no. I said, that was just the straw that broke the camel's back. Okay. But that showed that depression ran in the family. And, you know, even if it might pass certain people or other people deal with it better. And, you know, but it was so taboo to talk about it. Even when I was growing up, it was still very taboo. And in a way it still is. And that's why we need to break that, right? And that's why I wanted to bring up this whole stereotyping and judging thing. Because sometimes that too can lead to people not getting help. You know, what if an actual drug addict walked in and saw that doctor and said, I need help. And they don't know where else to go, right? So they go to the ER because it's a doctor and they're supposed to help you and they're supposed to help, you know, do no harm. And he just says, well, I'm not giving you drugs. And he just blows her off. They might go out and use, and they may end up dying. Because someone did not take the time to see them as a person. They took the time to judge them and stereotype them. You know, and I'm not saying that they haven't passed through these places where the person may have been drug seeking, because we've seen that. But here's the thing. People like the lady across the way. How do we know she wasn't drug seeking just because she's nice and dressed up? Right? It's not just addicts on the street that see it. Look at the 80s, right? All these yuppies that were getting high all the time. They walk outside, no one thinks twice about it because, you know, they're wearing a suit and a tie or maybe a nice dress to work or whatever. Nobody thinks about it. But we automatically have judgments and stereotypes on people because it's what's ingrained in our mind. It's what we're told. It's what we see on TV. So, you know, I appreciate older sibling letting me share that and letting me share her story, because I'll tell you, you see how passionate and angry I still get about it. And I will tell you this, I went up as far in that hospital chain as I could. And even one nurse was like, well, you're very passionate about this. And I said, no one messes around with my sister and gets away with it. And I said, I'm not the kind of person that normally complains and gets somebody in trouble, but this guy was terrible. And I told them everything. I told every time I had to retell that story, I would get more angry. And I, you know, finally, I'm all, well, I want your supervisor and I want the top person. And, you know, and I never heard back. And I kept calling and calling. Well, the hospital administrator will call you back. Never heard back from him. And finally, you know, I called one last time and I said, look, I know you're giving them the messages. I know they're not taking me seriously. But I said, you know, I said, I am gonna put this out there. And I said, I don't know how many people will see it, but I know a lot of people that live in Placentia, and I'm gonna straight up tell them not to come here. And she's like, well, I do apologize for that. And she's all, I'll be honest with you. She's all, we contract the doctors right now. So the ER doctors are actually not our doctors. You know, but she says only the administrator who hires them knows the company and the contracts of where they come from and stuff like that. So it's just like, older sibling finally asked me to just drop it. And I did. And I think maybe because she didn't want to relive it. But when you care about people and somebody goes out of their way to hurt them, you can understand why we get passionate about it, why we get angry about it. You know, just to bring up the point yesterday that I was talking about, when we talk about stereotyping and ageism, when I had gone to my cardiologist and he didn't take my concerns seriously. And, you know, so because the doctor asked me, he's all, well, did you have the new doctor I had gone to, he's all like, well, did you have, you know, he's all, what did he say? He's all, why did you change doctors? And I said, well, the other doctor didn't take me seriously enough. And I said, I was born with congenital heart defect. My father just had, had a heart attack, a massive heart attack, had like quintuple bypass surgery. And I said, I know I'm probably being a bit hypochondriac type about this because, you know, but I said, it did scare me, you know, because it's like, ooh, how's my heart doing? Because I hadn't been to the cardiologist in years. And so, you know, like I said, he ran me through the tests. And when he came back in, he's like, well, you know, I'm glad you came back in. Because he's all, here's the deal. If we don't keep an eye on this valve, it's going to shut down one of the chambers of your heart, and that chamber is going to die. He's all, which is basically the same as having a massive heart attack. And I'm in tears because I'm all like, I mean, it scared the shit out of me, but he drew the whole diagram on the paper that you sit on. He drew the whole diagram and everything. And then he says, well, what was the doctor's name? And I didn't think, and I gave him the name, and he's like, well, I'm going to have a talk with him. I'm like, uh-oh. And I said, no, it's okay. I said, it's okay. Because I said, I saw him with other patients that came in and he was really nice. He's all, no. He's a doctor. And when you come in to see a doctor, they need to take your concerns seriously. Even if they don't feel like it's serious, they need to listen and not just blow you off and push you off. Because he's all, this you were right about. And he's all, and I'm glad you came to see me. Turns out he was the head of the department. I was like, I didn't mean to get the guy in trouble. I really didn't. I didn't mean to get him in trouble because he was a nice guy. He just didn't take me seriously enough. And so anyways, that's, again, as I mentioned yesterday, that's how I ended up with my pediatric cardiologist. So I never clarified that yesterday. He's a pediatric cardiologist who specializes in adults who had pediatric heart surgeries. So this is why he is my specialist now. But, and I told older sibling, I came home and she's like, so how'd it go? I'm like, I got a specialist now. I know. Or I have a condition. So, you know, she's all, why do you say that so proudly? And I'm all, because everyone just kind of blows off the fact that I had heart surgery when I was a kid. And I said, and I think it's because I don't really care. You know, I'm just kind of like, whatever. You know, I don't remember it. It's just been a part of my life, my entire life. But yeah, I just, you know, I know we kind of ended up in all different directions, and I'm sorry, I did not mean to talk about myself, but I did want to share that part about how, you know, we shouldn't be stereotyping people, you know, and especially doctors should not be stereotyping people, you know. I mean, I'm sure that it is not an easy profession. You know, you go through years and years of schooling, and then sometimes you get people who are just, either they're cranky or they're assholes and they're just taking it out on you or whatever, but because even older sibling is like, well, maybe he's just having a bad day. But when he went across the hallway, she just kept making excuses for him. But when he went across the walkway and into that other lady's thing and started talking to her like, you know, she was his grandma, I was just like, no, he was judging you straight out. He was not being, you know, I'm having a bad day. He was just being a dick, period. And, you know, like I said, I will go to bat for anybody that I care about. You know, I've gone to bat for people I don't know because it's right. And I think we've all done that in our lives. We stuck up for people who just can't speak for themselves, or who, you know, just kind of freeze out of fear. And I've never been perfect. I am perfectly imperfect. And I know that there are times when I get judgy. And sometimes when I'm out driving and I see someone driving like a maniac and I think, you know what, maybe they're rushing to a hospital or something, and when I decide I'm not going to be mad that day. And sometimes I think it's just the place that I let out steam. I don't know, but I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be that judgy person, because we spent a whole 50 some odd minutes talking about how we shouldn't be judgy, and yet we all know we're not perfect. We're going to go out there and we're going to judge something. Okay. But I will say this, if you do, just ask yourself, what if I were in that situation? And I think a lot of times the reason I get angry when I'm driving is that it's not actual anger, it's panic. Because sometimes these people are so crazy or they cut you off so close and it's like, you react right, but then all of a sudden when you calm down, it's like, instead of saying, oh, thank goodness, I'm glad I'm okay, you're like, what the fuck is this person thinking? Just so much easier to be angry about it, right? Instead of logical. So anyways, that being said, I will say this about older sibling. She handled herself that day with so much grace and so much style and so much, just strength. Like I said, just so much strength and so much style. She was very classy in that moment. I was the feral one. I was definitely the feral one in that whole situation. But, and I did tell her, I said, well, what would you do if it were me? Shut up. She would have done the same thing. So, that's our thing. Shut up. Because But, I am very blessed in my life to be surrounded by beautiful human beings. And, life for me just feels like it's really starting. And I feel like there's people down the road that I still have yet to meet. And no matter who they are, I'm already grateful for them because I know they're going to be beautiful human beings in my life that just continue to add to my journey, and continue to add to the journeys of all the people I know. Because when you start intermingling your friends, I have friends that are moving to Kauai at the end of the summer, and I met them through Bestie, and already I've got a place to stay if I want to go out there. It's like, when are you going to come to visit? It's like, well, we'll cross that bridge when you move. But yeah, so it's just, I'm very, very blessed. And I think that's what we also need to remember is that, we see the struggles of our homeless people. We see the struggles of our veterans. We see the struggles of all the people who are battling addictions of some sort or the other, whether it's, an eating disorder or, alcohol, drugs, both, gambling. There's all kinds of addictions out there that people do to fill this hole inside of us that is there. And I can sit here and push therapy on you all day long, but I can't make you go. That's a choice you have to make. And if it's something you don't choose to do, just make sure that you have a good core group of people that you can lean on. Now, I don't mean completely lean on, but say, you know what, I need help, or I need an ear, or I need someone to listen. Because it's not always about therapy. I always tout therapy for people who've been through traumas to try to find an unbiased person sitting across from you that's going to walk you through your journey. But if it's just life things, regular life things, make sure you have a strong support group and don't be afraid to ask them to listen. If you are a good friend, you will listen, and you're not going to say, oh God, this again. No, you will listen, but you will also, I always do this when I'm talking to people now. And I've learned this because sometimes I have a tendency to overstep because I'm a fixer and I like to fix things. And I've gotten better at that. And a lot of that is because I couldn't fix things in my own life. So I try to fix things in other people's lives. But I ask them now when they come to talk to me and they're having some issues. It's like, do you want me? It's like, before we start, I need to know where we're at. And it's like, do you want me to tell you what you want to hear? Or do you want me to tell you what you need to hear? And sometimes it's the same thing, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes they just want someone to listen and just be there and, just agree with them. And other times, there are times, and I give them that option, because when they stop and think about it, it's like, oh, and sometimes they'll just say, just tell me what I need to hear this time, and, we'll talk about the other stuff later, because I just need to kind of pick myself up by my bootstraps and just keep moving forward. So sometimes that can help. It's the nice way of saying, let's bottom line this, But yeah. So anyways, I hope everybody has a wonderful, wonderful day, has a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Thank you for hanging in there. I feel like we may have gone off the rails at the end. Not in a bad way, but in a gentle way. But we kind of moved away from the original subject. But I really, really want people to be happy in their lives. Even if people go out of their way to hurt them. And even if strangers go out of their way to hurt them, even if professionals who are supposed to be there for you and show compassion and empathy because that is their job, go out of their way to hurt you. I just, I want you to know that there are good people out there. And that if you're struggling, there are a lot of places you can get help. If you're having some mental health issues, I believe the number, is it 988, guys? There are a lot of different lines. There's one line, and this is for, I know they kind of rolled back the whole LGBTQ thing with the 988 number. I think it's 988. Is it the 988 hotline? Sorry, yes. You can just dial 988. You can either text it or you can, call it, and it's a suicide crisis line, and they will put you through to someone. But in California, they are doing LGBTQ training for, since they removed funding for the LGBTQ lines, this current administration did. But I know, and I'm not sure about other states, but I know in California, they are making their phone operators go through training to help with the LGBTQ community as well. So yeah, if you need that help, call it. I had a friend that I had a friend once that ended up using this, and they were like, I was on the freeway, I pulled over and I called because it got that bad. And they said it really helped. It helped me get home to his family because they lived far away from work. And he's all, it helped me get home to my family, and it helped me, just kind of, until I could get to my own support group. So it does help. And, if you feel like the person's not helping you or they're being kind of blasé, just hang up and call back. All right. Because, I think sometimes, there are best intentions, but, sometimes life happens and they may not be in the best frame of mind. So, I have personally never used this line yet because, like I said, I'm very, very grateful that I do have, a very strong support core. And, and I'm also very open about my mental health. So, it's not a secret to anybody, but I do that again, because I'm hoping that by sharing my story, it helps other people heal theirs. And, I have the gift of gab, clearly, and, I love to write. So they all seem to kind of just compound together and make a thing. So anyways, again, hope everybody has a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you so much for listening and staying on. I know this was a pretty long one, but I hope you also have a safe and a wonderful weekend. And please take care of yourselves, okay? Whether you have mental health issues or not, take care of yourselves, because, the world is a bit sketchy right now, on the whole, no matter how you feel about it. And it is a little exhausting. So, that can upend us at times. So just take care of yourselves, all right? And I will see you back here on Monday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific time, Facebook Live. All lives are public under Shelley Marie Lucas. And I do upload them to YouTube and TikTok, and then I move them across the social media board from there, all right? So, again, have a great day. Muddy, older sibling, Angie, thank you all for coming on, popping on, having some conversation with me. And again, let's not go out there and judge everybody, all right? Let's look at people with compassion, empathy, and understanding. And I'm saying that about myself too, because I definitely know I need to do that, because I can't get judgy. I mean, I got judgy about that doctor, didn't I? Yes, I did. But, oh well. But you know what? I do hope that this is something that he learned from. I really, really do. And you know, who knows? Just as a quick thing, maybe that needed to happen so that he could rethink things. Because I know he heard me, you know, and so maybe that helped him in his own way. We can only hope. But anyways, have a great day. Love you too, Sammy. And I will talk to everybody on Monday.